At the receiving end, the receiver reverses the process. So the bits are received at the physical layer by the network interface card, or NIC. The layer 2 header is read. It is then stripped and the data is passed to layer 3. The layer 3 header is read and that's stripped and the data is passed to layer 4. And this process continues until all the headers have been removed. So this is the process of de-encapsulation, where the headers are stripped and the data is passed up through the OSI model until only the original data remains without any headers. This data would then be processed by an application on that PC, or in this example, the web server. So the web server would process the HTTP GET message sent by the browser on the client as an example. So in summary, please note that on the sender, the data is transmitted down through the OSI model and encapsulated at each layer, and then physically transmitted across the wire. At the receiver, the data is de-encapsulated at each layer of the OSI model until we have the original data, which is then used by the application. So what's important to note is that because of encapsulation and de-encapsulation, each layer of the OSI model only communicates with the equivalent layer on the other device. So in this example, PCA's application layer communicates with PCB's application layer. This is true for all the other layers. The presentation layer communicates with the presentation layer, session with session, transport with transport, and so forth and so on. Each layer only communicates with the equivalent layer on the other device. At the physical layer, the data is transmitted as bits. So as an example, if we use Ethernet, electrical current may be used to transmit zeros and ones. Now, specific terms are used in networking to refer to each layer. So at the physical layer, the data is transmitted as bits. At the data link layer, it's known as frames. At the network layer, it's known as packets. And at the transport layer, it's known as segments. So in other words, PCA transmits packets to PCB at the network layer. At the data link layer, for example, frames are transmitted, and so forth and so on. It's important that you understand these terms, because in networking and in this course, we'll talk about how packets are routed by routers, or how frames are transmitted through switches. And that's because routers reside at layer 3 of the OSI model, and switches reside at layer 2.